I always thought betrayal came with warning signs. A strange tone in a friend's voice, a suspicious glance, a gut feeling that something was off. But when my life blew up, it came like a truck, out of nowhere, sudden, violent, and orchestrated down to the second dot. My mother-in-law, Lorraine, had never liked me. From the day her son, Ethan, introduced me as his girlfriend. She gave me that smile women like her have perfected. Sweet, on top, venom underneath. According to her, I lacked pedigree, which was her polite way of saying I didn't come from wealth. But I had patience, and I believed time could soften her. I was wrong. The first domino fell the day my best friend, Talia, texted me. We need to talk. Urgent. Talia and I had been inseparable since college. She'd been my maid of honor, the one person I trusted with my whole chest. So when she asked me to meet at a cafe, I didn't hesitate. When I arrived, her eyes were red, mascara smudged. She shoved her phone at me with a shaking hand. It was a video short, grainy clip of Ethan in a hotel room. Or rather, someone who looked enough like Ethan to make my heart drop into my stomach. He was shirtless, sitting on the edge of a bed. And a woman's voice whispered something indecent from behind the camera. I'm so sorry, Talia whispered. I didn't know how to tell you. My world tilted. Ethan cheating. Impossible. He wasn't perfect, but he loved me. I felt it every day in the small things, coffee ready before I woke up, his hand always reaching for mine. But the video punched holes in everything I thought I knew. I didn't remember walking out of the cafe. I didn't remember driving home. I only remembered standing in our bedroom hours later, gripping the video like it was a live wire. When Ethan came home, I confronted him. His confusion was immediate, his denial fierce. But what were his words against proof? Within 2 days, I moved out. By the end of the week, we were taking a break. Lorraine pretended to be heartbroken for me, but she couldn't hide her glee. She brought over casseroles, made dramatic sighs, said things like, maybe it's for the best, dear. Some marriages just aren't meant to last. I didn't see the trap until it snapped shut. 2 weeks after leaving Ethan, I got a call from an unknown number. A trembling voice asked, Is this Hannah? I'm the one who made the video. It felt like someone cut the world around me completely silent. She told me everything. The actor wasn't Ethan, it was a hired lookalike. The hotel room was rented under a fake name. She'd been paid to film the footage, deliver it, disappear. And who paid you? I asked, my voice shaking. She hesitated, then whispered, You're Ethan's mother, Lorraine. My heart didn't just crack, it detonated. I felt sick, physically ill. The betrayal stunned me into a kind of frozen clarity. Lorraine hadn't stumbled into sabotaging my life. She had planned it, step by step. She had known exactly what emotional bomb she was buying. And then came the final blow. The girl said, she wasn't the only one involved. Your friend was the one who contacted me. She got a cut of the money. My brain couldn't process the words. Talia? I breathed. No, she wouldn't. But she had. She'd forwarded the video. She'd played the friend comforting me. She'd sat across from me with crocodile tears while poisoning my life. I hung up, shaking. My hands were numb. My thoughts a storm. I checked my phone. Pulled up the text that started everything. We need to talk. Urgent. Talia had known exactly where and when to drop the bomb. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Rage churned through me so violently it felt like an engine revving under my skin. Lorraine had laughed behind my back. She'd actually laughed. Someone who was supposed to become my family had orchestrated a fake cheating scandal just to remove me from her son's life because I wasn't good enough for her. And Talia, the knife buried in the deepest part of my back, had her fingerprints all over it by morning. One thing became crystal clear. I wasn't going to be a victim in their little story. No, if Lorraine wanted a villain so badly, I would become one, but on my own terms. And I would make sure. The two of them regretted the day they underestimated me. Because revenge wasn't just tempting, it was owed. I always thought grief was the heaviest emotional weight a person could carry. I was wrong. Rage, quiet, calculated rage, was heavier. It settled into my bones like molten metal, hot enough to burn, heavy enough to anchor me in a single relentless purpose. By the time the sun rose the morning after the phone call, I wasn't the same woman who had sobbed over a fake cheating video. That woman had died the moment I learned the truth. The new me, she had teeth. The first step was evidence. I wasn't stupid. Revenge without receipts becomes self-destruction. I needed more than a mystery caller's confession. I needed proof that Lorraine had orchestrated the entire thing, so I called the girl back. Her name was Rachel, 22, desperate for money. Living paycheck to paycheck in a rundown apartment, Loren's offer had been too tempting to refuse. Look, I told her, choosing my words carefully. I'm not here to punish you. I just need everything you have. Every message, every detail, every payment. There was a long silence, then a shaky exhale. I kept screenshots, she finally admitted, just in case. People like her. You never know. I met her in person-neutral territory, a diner outside the city. She was tiny, nervous, clutching a folder like it was a life jacket. Inside were printouts of text messages, emails, payment receipts, all from burner accounts, but the language was unmistakably Lorraine's brand of polished cruelty. My favorite line was one that made my stomach turn even as it sharpened. My resolve: make sure she sees enough to break things off with him. This girl has been a mistake from the beginning. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a targeted demolition. Rachel watched me as I flipped through the evidence. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know she wanted to destroy your whole life. I nodded. I wasn't angry at her. She was a pawn. I was hunting the queen. And Talia? I asked. Rachel swallowed hard and handed me a second folder, smaller, thinner, but somehow more painful. Talia's messages were short, directive, and disturbingly casual. I'll deliver the video once it's edited. Make it look like he's drunk. She'll believe it. Trust me. And then, the worst one. I can't wait to see her face. I felt something cold unfurl in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't confusion. It was the death of friendship the moment loyalty rotted completely. Rachel left after that, promising to stay available if I needed anything else. I walked to my car with the folders hugged against my ribs. From there, I drove. Not to Ethan, not to confront Talia, not to scream at Lorraine. No. I drove to someone who would help me turn these files into a weapon. My brother, Marcus. Unlike me, Marcus never tried to get on Lorraine's good side. He'd called her the Ice Queen the first time he met her at our engagement dinner and never bothered to hide his disdain. He worked in cybersecurity, digital forensics, data recovery, tracking hidden accounts. The kind of work that sounded boring until you needed someone's digital footprints collected, without a trace. When I walked into his apartment, he took one look at my face and turned off his game console. What happened? He asked immediately. I didn't ease into it. I ripped the bandage off. I told him everything: the video, the phone call, the confession, the evidence. By the time I finished, Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might break his teeth. That bitch, he muttered. I knew she didn't like you, but this is movie villain level. Can you help me? I asked. He didn't hesitate. Tell me what you want. I handed him the folders. I want proof. Digital, unshakable, irrefutable. Something she can't wiggle out of. He nodded slowly. You want a digital kill shot? Exactly. Marcus cracked his knuckles and opened his laptop. Give me a few days. I stayed with him that night, half because I needed company, half because I didn't trust myself alone with my thoughts. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Talia's fake tears, Loren's smug smile, the way Ethan's face fell when I accused him. My anger at him flickered though. If the video was fake, then he really hadn't cheated. He hadn't deserved my rage. He'd only seen the aftermath, not the setup. But that was a problem for later. For now, I focused on the woman who had detonated my life like it was nothing more than an inconvenient obstacle in her plans. 2 days later, Marcus called me into his office. On the screen were files organized, labeled, compiled, metadata tracing identical writing patterns between Lorraine's burner accounts and her real emails, IP addresses linking back to her home, payment logs routed through her secondary bank account, and one gem, a recorded phone call Marcus had retrieved from a cloud backup. Lorraine talking to Talia. My heart froze as we listened. I told you she'd fall for it. Talia laughed. She's emotional, Lorraine replied. It was easy, and once she's out of the picture, Ethan will finally think clearly. Talia snorted. You really hate her, don't you? Lorraine's grin was audible. She isn't one of us. When the recording ended, Marcus turned to me. You have everything you need. I didn't speak for a moment. My mind wasn't spinning, it was aligning, sharpening, planning, because now, revenge wasn't just possible, it was inevitable, and it was going to be devastating. People talk about revenge like it's impulsive, like it's fire raging out of control. But the real thing, the kind that sears permanently, it isn't loud, it isn't messy, it's calculated, measured, cold. That's the version I chose. Once Marcus handed me the digital RCND mails, burner messages, payment records, and that deliciously incriminating phone call, it was time to decide when and how to use it. I spent 2 days mapping out every angle like I was planning a military operation. My targets. Target number 1. Lorraine, the architect of the scandal. Target number 2. Talia, the Judicide called family. Ethan wasn't on the list. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He had been collateral damage, not the cause. And despite everything, a piece of me still trusted the man I married. But trust doesn't erase consequences. We had a crater between us now, one his mother had gleefully carved. I started with reconnaissance. Lorraine hosted a weekly charity brunch, one of those events, where rich women gathered to sip champagne, gossip about people poorer than them, and pretend it counted as philanthropy. She loved these events, loved the spotlight, loved being the elegant queen bee surrounded by admirers. Perfect. If you want to destroy someone who lives for her reputation, you hit her where the cameras roll. But I didn't move yet. Not until I understood the ecosystem around her. The first stop was someone who already disliked her, Ethan's cousin, Kelsey. Kelsey had once told me privately, Lorraine thinks being wealthy makes her a god, but that woman's empire is built on lies. At the time, I'd thought it was just family petty drama. Now I knew better. I asked her to meet me for coffee. She agreed quickly, probably thinking I wanted comfort. When I told her what Lorraine had done, the look on her face was pure, vengeful satisfaction. "Oh, I always knew she was rotten," she said. "I just didn't know she was this rotten." I hesitated. "I'm not just telling you. I need your help." "Say less," she replied instantly. "What do you want me to do?" I smiled slowly. "Help me pick the right audience. Because the right scandal can crush someone, but only if the right people see it." Next came Talia. I didn't confront her, not directly. She didn't deserve the privilege of my rage, and I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. Instead, I shadowed her life quietly, her job at the marketing firm, her gym schedule, her Thursday night trivia with her newest group of friends, the ones she started hanging out with right after betraying me, as if she needed fresh faces to avoid guilt. But guilt wasn't her problem. Arrogance was. 2 weeks after collecting the evidence, I walked into the same cafe where she'd shown me the fake video. Wearing sunglasses and a neutral expression, she didn't see me. She was too busy laughing. With her. With Lorraine, they were seated together, sipping tea like nothing bound them except afternoon gossip. Talia leaned in conspiratorially, and Lorraine smirked like she was sharing royal secrets. For a moment, I felt something sharp and primal inside me, a desire to flip the table, to scream, to force them to look at me and see the damage they'd done. But anger is loud, revenge is silent. I left unnoticed, let them enjoy their tea. It would be their last peaceful moment for a long time. I went home and set part 2 of my plan in motion, preparing Ethan. No, not confronting him, not yet, but I needed to know whether he still trusted me beneath the rubble of the scandal. So I texted him, "Can we talk soon? Not about getting back together, just talk." He responded within a minute. "Yes, anytime." My heart twisted, not painfully, just tightly, like it wasn't sure how to beat. But that conversation would come after the hammer fell on the 2 women who'd earned my wrath. Finally, the last piece. Timing. Lorraine's charity brunch was in 5 days. A high-profile one. Local press, social media influencers, donors, sponsors, benefactors. The kind of crowd that treated reputations like currency. Perfect battlefield. So I made 3 preparations. 1. A cute email blast to every attendee, every board member, every sponsor, all containing the evidence, the phone call, the payments, the messages, scheduled to send exactly 1 hour into the event. 2. A personalized envelope hand-delivered to Lorraine at the event, containing a single USB, labeled, "For Your Legacy." 3. A seat at the brunch reserved under a different name, front row, because I wanted her to see me, not as the girl she'd tried to break, but as the woman who walked into her kingdom and burned it down from the throne she thought was hers alone. The night before the brunch, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at myself. I didn't look like someone plotting vengeance. I looked calm, focused, almost serene, because people forget something important about revenge. It doesn't consume you when it's righteous. It clarifies you. And I had never been clearer. The next morning, I woke up early, dressed in a sleek black dress, and tied my hair up. Marcus texted, "Everything set. Go make history." Kelsey sent a winking emoji. Rachel sent a nervous, "Good luck." I took a deep breath, grabbed the envelope, and walked out the door. If part 1 was the betrayal, and part 2 was the discovery, part 3 was the setup, and part 4, that would be the impact. Loren's charity brunch was held at the Beaumont Garden Resort. A place so polished it practically smelled like money. White stone columns, imported roses, waiters in crisp uniforms. It was a shrine to wealth. The perfect setting for a carefully curated public image. Which was exactly why I chose it. I arrived early, blending into the entry crowd under the name Alyssa Grant, a donor who had RSVP'd but never showed to events, a convenient ghost whose identity was easy to borrow. Inside, the ballroom gleamed with crystal chandeliers and soft classical music. Tables were adorned with gold linens, place cards in curling script, and centerpieces of lilies imported from somewhere expensive. Women in designer dresses circled the room like jeweled satellites, sipping champagne and whispering. Camera crews milled around. Photographers snapped pictures of people pretending to care about philanthropy more than social status. And then she walked in. Lorraine, elegance wrapped in silk, diamonds glittering at her throat, her smile a perfect, practiced crescent that never reached her eyes. She basked in the attention, shaking hands, giving air kisses, complimenting outfits with the precision of a woman who cataloged every social hierarchy and her place at the top of it. She didn't see me, not yet. I took my seat at the front, my heart steady, my plan humming beneath my ribs like an engine warming. 1 hour to showtime. Around 25 minutes in, Talia arrived. She looked exactly the same as she had the day she betrayed me. Glossy hair, confident stride, that smug little smirk she wore when she thought she'd gotten away with something. She greeted Lorraine with a hug, and that hugging the woman who paid her to destroy me cemented her fate. As waiters refilled glasses and guests settled into their seats, I watched Lorraine float onto the stage, taking her position at the podium. "Welcome, everyone," she began, voice sweet as poisoned honey. "Thank you for supporting a cause so dear to my heart. My phone vibrated. 15 minutes until the email blast. She continued. Today's fundraiser is a celebration of generosity. If only she knew how generous I was feeling. 10 minutes later, waiters began circulating plates of food. Lorraine sat at the head table, laughing lightly at something an elderly donor said. I rose from my seat and walked toward her. She didn't notice until I was close enough to cast a shadow over her plate. When she looked up, confusion wrinkled her brow. Then her eyes widened slightly, like she'd seen a ghost. "Hannah," she breathed, but not with guilt, with disdain, irritation, and disbelief that I'd dare contaminate her precious space. I smiled pleasantly and placed the small black envelope on the table in front of her. "For your legacy," I said softly. Before she could respond, I stepped back and walked away, returning calmly to my seat. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked it up. She opened it. She saw the USB, and her face drained. "Good." She excused herself from the table with a tight smile and hurried off stage, heels tapping sharply across the marble as she disappeared behind a curtain. My phone buzzed again. Email. Blast. 2 minutes. Talia, oblivious, scrolled through her social media, probably judging strangers on the internet as icily as she judged me. Then a ripple moved through the room. Phones buzzed. Notifications chimed. Confused murmurs spread like smoke. One woman gasped, another frowned at her screen. A man whispered, "Is this real?" And then the whispers turned into stunned chatter. Screens flashed with attachments, the emails, the payments, the messages, the recorded phone call. The truth spread through the crowd like wildfire. Talia looked around, confused. Then she checked her own phone. Her face went white. Across the room, a door slammed open. Lorraine burst back into the ballroom, pale, furious, eyes darting wildly as people stepped away from her like she carried a contagious disease. Dozens of faces turned toward her. Judging, disgusted, some horrified. Her veneer cracked instantly. "This is slander," she shouted. "Is it?" Someone called back. "Why are your accounts on the payments?" Another demanded. "Is that your voice in the recording?" Cameras lifted. Phones recorded. The scene unraveled with merciless precision. Talia stumbled toward Lorraine. "Lorraine, what do we do?" Lorraine turned on her so fast the room seemed to freeze. "You idiot," she snarled. "I told you to delete everything." Talia flinched. "You said you handled it. You said you were supposed to be discreet. You were supposed to protect us." Their shouted argument echoed across the room, feeding the chaos, the press, the witnesses. No one stepped in. Everyone watched. Exactly as I planned. Finally, Lorraine's gaze snapped to me. "You," she hissed. "You did this." I stood slowly. "No," I said, my voice carrying through the room. "You did this. I just made sure everyone finally saw the woman behind the pearls." She lunged a step toward me, but someone grabbed her arm. Security camera flashes erupted. The queen had fallen and I had barely lifted a finger, as she was escorted out, red-faced and shrieking. Talia chased after Urbit. The crowd parted from both of them like oil from water. Their kingdom had turned its back, and I sat down calmly, picked up my glass of champagne, and took a slow, satisfied sip. The first blow had landed. But the war wasn't over. Not until Ethan knew everything. The aftermath of the brunch was chaos in slow motion. Social media had exploded. Screenshots of Loren's private burner messages, Talia's complicity, and the phone call I had placed in the envelope spread like wildfire. By the evening, the story had gone viral locally. National outlets picked it up by midnight. Loren's empire of influence and curated reputation began to crumble. Sponsors withdrew. Donors called her, not to console, but to demand explanations. The women who once fawned over her were now whispering behind her back. One even posted a viral tweet. Nothing worse than someone who smiles for the cameras while stabbing their own family. Karma's here, Lorraine. I had deliberately avoided making a scene myself. The world had to witness her fall organically, without my fingerprints. I was the silent ghost orchestrating the symphony, not the star of it. Meanwhile, Talia was unraveling privately. Her work colleagues, who had always found her charming and trustworthy, received anonymous copies of the same evidence I'd sent to the brunch attendees. Suddenly, she was the girl who betrayed her best friend for cash. A woman who laughed while ruining someone else's life. I didn't hear from Talia immediately. I didn't want to. I wanted her panic and confusion to grow naturally, unprompted. The mental spiral of realizing you're alone in the world. Because you've been exposed, that is far more satisfying than confrontation. While the two women were dealing with public disgrace, I had to ensure Ethan knew the truth. I wanted him to understand everything before speaking to me. I couldn't risk him hearing from anyone else. I couldn't have him distrust me again because of someone else's lies. I invited him to the park where we had first met. Quiet, neutral territory. He arrived, hesitant, the shadow of the old scandal still haunting his face. "Hannah," he asked, cautious. "I saw everything online. Are you okay?" I gave him a calm smile, holding up a small folder. "Not the full arsenal, just enough. We need to talk, really talk, about what happened, and who really betrayed whom." He listened in stunned silence as I laid out the entire story, the fake video, Rachel Talia's betrayal, and Lorraine's orchestration. His face shifted through a spectrum. Disbelief, shock, relief, and finally anger, not at me, but at his mother and Talia. You lied for her?" he asked quietly, voice breaking. "Every step of the way," I said. "They wanted to destroy me. I just made sure the world knew the truth." He stared at me, silent, and for a moment I wondered if he'd still forgive me. Then he reached for my hand, his grip firm. "I should have trusted you," he whispered. "I should have known something was wrong." I didn't say anything. The moment wasn't for apologies. It was for clarity, for trust rebuilt. Meanwhile, Talia had finally called. Her voice was thin and trembling. "Hannah, please." I cut her off. My voice calm, icy. "No. I want you to feel what it's like to be alone. You chose betrayal. You watched me suffer for your gain. You wanted chaos. You have it." She tried to beg, tried to explain, but I had already made my decision. The bridge between us was gone. I wasn't cruel. I was final. Some people deserve closure, and some deserve consequences. Talia would live with hers. Lorraine tried to reach me next. Furious, calling, texting, showing up at my door in person, her pearls rattling as she fumed. I ignored her. I let the public exposure do the work I couldn't legally or morally take into my own hands. By the third day, she had been forced to step down from multiple boards, resign from charity leadership positions, and cancel expensive social events. Sponsors publicly cut ties. Her name was trending for the wrong reasons, and she knew I had made sure she knew that I had orchestrated the final reveal. Even Talia's social circle had turned against her. Invitations stopped. Calls went unanswered. People she had relied on for validation now recoiled from her, citing her actions as unforgivable. And I watched it all quietly. No celebrations, no gloating, just satisfaction. The satisfaction of justice served, precise and unflinching. That night, Ethan and I met again, this time at my apartment. The world felt lighter. For the first time in weeks, the crushing weight of betrayal had shifted. I hadn't only survived, I had reclaimed my narrative, my dignity, and my future. I poured a glass of wine, handing one to him. "Two starting over," I said softly. He nodded, eyes meeting mine with trust restored. "To truth," he replied. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about reclaiming control. It's about watching the people who thought they could destroy you stumble in the maze they built for you. And it's about surviving with your heart intact while they flounder in their own consequences. Lorraine and Talia were broken, but I wasn't, and I knew that if either of them tried to rebuild their lives, they would do so with the haunting memory of the day they underestimated me. I had been betrayed, but I had emerged victorious, and that victory was sweeter than any moment of friendship, love, or trust they had tried to steal from me. The first part of my revenge, the public humiliation, was complete. The final part, the personal reckoning, would come next. After Loren's public downfall and Talia's social implosion, the world felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful quiet, like the stillness after a storm where debris still litters the ground, but the air is clear enough to breathe again. But while the public spectacle was complete, the personal consequences were just beginning. Lorraine had not taken her humiliation gracefully. While she was forced to step down from multiple charity boards and withdraw from prominent social circles, she refused to accept responsibility. Behind the scenes, she scrambled to damage control her reputation, calling donors, claiming she was set up, insisting the recordings were fabricated. But for every lie she tried to spin, the digital evidence Marcus compiled countered it. Dates, IP logs, metadata, financial traces, every corner she tried to hide in had a spotlight waiting. Still, she wasn't done thrashing. 2 days after the brunch, she showed up at Ethan's apartment. I wasn't there, but Ethan told me everything afterward. She barged inside, shaking with rage. "How dare you let her do this to me?" she screamed, heels clicking like gunshots on the hardwood floor. Ethan stood his ground. "Let her, Mom, you destroyed your own life. She tricked you," Lorraine accused. "She manipulated the footage, planted fake evidence. You paid someone to fake a cheating scandal," he said sharply. "You paid my wife's best friend to betray her. You ruined our marriage." Lorraine froze at those words. "My wife." Even though we were separated, he still said it with conviction. "She's beneath you," Lorraine spat, the last thread of her pride unraveling. "This girl, this desperate little nobody that nobody," Ethan cut in, "has more integrity than you ever had." That silenced her. He told me. She stood there trembling, looking at him like he had just stabbed the mother Sinbond herself. Then she left without another word, slamming the door so hard the frame cracked. She had lost her reputation, she had lost her influence, and now she had lost her son. But she wasn't the only one unraveling. Talia had tried calling me. Repeatedly calls, I never answered. Then she began sending texts. "Please, Hannah, let me explain. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Lorraine forced my hand. She threatened my job. I was in a bad place financially. I needed the money. "You don't understand. I cared about you." Her lies were as thin as tissue paper. But the last message, the one that came at 2:14 a.m., showed the truth. "I'm scared. Everyone hates me. Please. I don't have anyone left." For a moment, a flicker of sympathy tugged at my chest. But only for a moment. Because she was right. She didn't have anyone left. She had traded friendship for money, loyalty for convenience, integrity for gossip, and now she had to live with the consequences. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but out of closure. Forgiveness is not owed, especially not to someone who weaponized your trust for profit. Meanwhile, Ethan and I began seeing each other again, not romantically, but with the quiet caution of two people trying to rebuild something delicate. We talked. For hours, we walked through the park. We cooked dinner together. We told the truth about everything: our fears, our pain, our regrets. He apologized in a way that didn't feel performative or desperate. "I didn't stand by you when you needed me," he admitted. "I let panic override trust, and I'll never forgive myself for letting my mother come between us." I held his hand but didn't rush. "We'll take this slow." He nodded. "As slow as you want," and he meant it. For the first time since the scandal began, I felt something, returning, something warm, cautious, hopeful. But there was still one last thing I needed to do. Not revenge, not closure, control. I needed to tell Lorraine directly, not in public, not in anger, but in clarity, that she no longer had power over me or my life. So I requested a meeting. At a coffee shop, neutral territory. She arrived late, sunglasses covering half her face, her once polished aura replaced with defensive stiffness. When she sat down, her hands trembled, betraying the composure she tried desperately to maintain. "What do you want?" she asked, voice sharp and brittle. I met her gaze evenly. "I'm not here to gloat," I said. "I'm here to end this." She laughed humorlessly. End this. You think you can end what you've done? No, I replied calmly. Only you can. Her brows furrowed. I'm not going to war with you, Lorraine. Not unless you come for me again. I have proof. I have allies. And now, everyone knows who you are. She flinched. But I'm willing to walk away from this, I continued. Live your life. Pick up the pieces. Try to rebuild whatever you can. Just understand one thing. I leaned forward slightly. You will never control Ethan again, and you will never have access to my life again. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She couldn't because she had nothing left to bargain with. I stood to leave, pausing just long enough to offer one final truth. You did this to yourself. All I did was show the world. When I walked away, Lorraine didn't call after me. She didn't shout. She didn't throw insults. She simply went still, like someone realizing, perhaps for the first time, that she wasn't untouchable. The storm she had unleashed had finally settled. But one last part of my story remained. What came after revenge? The days that followed were quieter, almost eerily so. Loren's world, once gleaming with influence and control, had shrunk to a hushed mess of whispered apologies and desperate PR meetings. Talia's once bright social life had evaporated. She wandered her apartment like a ghost, surrounded by reminders of the trust she had destroyed and the friends she had lost forever. And me, I walked forward in a different world, a world I had reshaped, quietly, skillfully. I didn't need to flaunt my victory. I didn't need to gloat. The satisfaction came from knowing that the people who had tried to ruin me were now reckoning with their own actions, while I reclaimed everything they had tried to steal. Ethan and I met regularly, slowly rebuilding a fragile trust. Not love, not yet, but a bond stronger than before. One forged in truth instead of lies. We laughed again, cooked again, and sat together in the quiet of the evening, talking about mundane things, work, friends, the small victories of life. Normalcy was delicious, almost intoxicating after weeks of chaos. One afternoon, I received a text from Kelsey. You did it. You really did it. I smiled faintly, feeling that warm tingle of vindication. She had been an ally from the shadows, helping me maneuver quietly through the social minefield. But I didn't need validation. I had already felt it in the reactions. I watched the subtle panic in Lorraine's eyes during the brunch. Talia's inability to lift her head. The way the public finally saw them for what they were. I didn't stalk them. I didn't humiliate further. I simply existed in my own life. A life free from their manipulation. And that was the final victory. Because sometimes the most effective revenge isn't revenge at all, it's living. Well, while those who tried to destroy you flounder in the aftermath, Lorraine tried quietly to repair some of her connections. But the public memory was long and unforgiving. Sponsors who had once fawned over her now avoided her, afraid that any association would tarnish their reputations. Social media posts mocked her, dissected her lies, and turned her once celebrated persona into a cautionary tale. Talia, too, faced consequences she hadn't imagined. Her professional reputation took a hit. Colleagues stopped trusting her. Even casual friends withdrew, unwilling to be associated with someone who had so casually betrayed their closest confidant. She lived in a world of anxiety, haunted by the memory of her own actions, replaying them over and over until they became a sort of punishment she could never escape. Meanwhile, I focused on myself. I started a new project at work, poured energy into hobbies I had neglected, and surrounded myself with people who truly cared, not manipulators, not opportunists, but genuine friends and allies. Every step was a reclaiming of my agency, a declaration that my life belonged to me and not to the whims of those who sought to control it. And then came the moment. I realized the true impact of what had happened, not just on Lorraine and Talia, but on me. I felt lighter, stronger, unburdened by anger or fear. The betrayal, the manipulation, the scandal, all of it had forged a version of me that was sharper, wiser, and more self-assured. Revenge had not consumed me. It had clarified me. I thought about Lorraine sometimes. I imagined her staring at the shards of her reputation, wondering why she had ever underestimated me. I thought about Talia, trapped in her own guilt, no longer able to escape the consequences she had earned. And I realized that the sweetest part of all wasn't seeing them fall, it was seeing myself rise. One evening, Ethan and I sat on the balcony, watching the city lights flicker. He didn't hold my hand immediately. He just let our shoulders brush. A quiet reassurance that we were here, present, alive, and no longer defined by lies. I'm glad it's over, he said softly. It's never really over, I replied, but we survived, and that's enough. He nodded. You survived. You're incredible. I smiled, a real honest smile this time. Not the practiced one I had shown Lorraine, not the one I had worn to survive Talia's betrayal, but a smile born from truth, resilience, and self-possession. The world outside continued to spin, oblivious to the chaos that had once threatened to engulf me. Lorraine faded from public view, Talia struggled to rebuild her fractured life, and I thrived in the clarity that comes when you reclaim control. No one could ever manipulate me again, not my mother-in-law, not my friend, not anyone who underestimated me. The lesson they had taught me was simple but profound. Betrayal hurts, but empowerment heals. Revenge is sweetest when measured, precise, and complete, but survival, dignity, and self-respect, that is the victory that lasts. And as I leaned back, watching the sunset paint the sky in streaks of gold and crimson, I finally felt at the absolute weightlessness of freedom. I had been betrayed, yes. I had been hurt, yes. But I had turned their malice into my triumph. And that triumph was mine alone? The storm had passed. The ruins of my enemies lay in its wake. And I was standing taller than ever, unbroken, unshaken, unstoppable. The story of betrayal had ended. The story of me had just begun.